Now, I always start with a joke,
Okay.
right? But this time, I want to start with you introducing yourself.
Okay.
All right. If if
Okay.
if if someone else were to introduce you, right,
Mm-hmm.
they would say your name, title, etc. So introduce yourself.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Dr. Alice Gordon Holloway. I'm a native of Mobile, Alabama, and I live in Birmingham. And I am a six-time serial entrepreneur. And so I've started multiple enterprises, and I've been able to successfully see those grow. Some I've done really well, some not so much. I'm also now a college professor where I serve as an adjunct professor at the University of Alabama. So I teach entrepreneurship, corporate and business strategy as well. I also continue to work as a CEO for my own company, Sky Connect Incorporated, where I work with organizations and leaders around the country, challenging them to think differently around technology, around leadership training and organizational development. And I also started about a year and a half ago this company called Sky Connect Transport, in which we are a logistics transportation company moving products for various warehouses. So I'm a mom as well. I'm a wife, and I'm actually, I think I feel like I'm a really good friend as well. That's something that I really value, being able to be a valuable player no matter what setting I find myself in. So that's a little bit more information about me, and I'm excited to be a part of the program today. Thank you for inviting me.
Now we're gonna delay the joke again for
Okay,
a
okay.
second.
All right.
Yeah, you. I know you sitting on pins and needles to tell your joke.
You know, because I'm terrible at joke telling. I'm terrible at it. And you asked me the first question, tell you a joke. I'm thinking, oh my
So
gosh.
that's why I have you sitting on pins and needles. But I
Okay.
gotta ask you this question because we were talking about it in the lead up. All of that being said,
Hmm.
what made you bet on yourself?
You know what? I believe that I'm my greatest asset. I also
Mm-hmm.
believe that if we don't bet on ourselves, who's going to bet on us? I was actually a product of a young girl who was 15 years old at the time that she had me. Unfortunately, my mother has since passed. She passed away at 51 years old. And so she always gave me that advice of always being able to do more than one thing really well. And so having multiple talents and streams, if you will, of information and skills you can develop. And so I believe that when I decided to bet on myself, I went back and was thinking about what my mother taught me, the lessons she taught me as well. And so I realized that if I don't bet on me, who's going to bet on me? And so I went back and received my PhD at the University of South Alabama. Later in life, I was older, I'll say that, and so of course, my son at the time was really young, and I realized, okay, now is the time for me to do this if I'm going to do this. I had a little bit of support in terms of family support. I had a lot of ambition at the time, and so I utilized all of that to go back and finish my PhD, which I will say, Iva, was really the hardest thing I've ever done
Hmm.
at this point in life, because as you can see, there are only pretty much 2 to 3% population of the world that have an advanced PhD degree. And so I knew for sure that it was hard getting in, but I wasn't sure how hard. And when I had my interview at USA, they said it's almost another full-time job on top of whatever job you have. And they were not kidding. It was just like that. And so nights, weekends, days, everything is about reading and understanding and building your knowledge base around your discipline. And I'm a business management discipline PhD staffer and researcher. And so I do a lot of those things, really trying to understand how organizations function, how people within those organizations manage themselves accordingly to the structure itself. So I think that's when I bet on myself. That was one of the biggest bets I made. I made several others after that, but that's the one I'll kind of tee up for this conversation.
Gotcha. Well, with that being said, tell me a joke.
Okay, okay. All right,
You
here
tickled already.
I am, because I keep thinking I wasn't good at this. Okay, so a young boy and his father are sitting down, and the young boy says, "Dad, are bugs good to eat?" Dad say, "Oh, that's disgusting. We at dinner. Don't talk about that now." That's what the dad tells the son. And so after the dinner, the father says, well, "Son, what did you have to tell me?" The boy says, "Oh, nothing. There was a bug in your soup, but now it's gone." So it tells you we need to stop and listen to the kids because he just ate a bug. So that was my joke.
I like it. I like it. It was a joke with a message.
It
as
was,
well.
wasn't it? Yes. I struggled with that one, but thank you for allowing me to get through it.
Now, one more question that, was unscripted, if you will. You were just talking about how we met.
Yes.
And I'm going to let you tell that story, or the first time you saw me in action, if you will.
Yes.
I'm going to let you tell that story.
Okay. And so I had recently moved to Birmingham, and I was unfamiliar with Birmingham landscape, but I knew Birmingham had an amazing comedy club. And so this particular evening, I actually had a chance to go out and see the comedy club Stardome and see an entertainer. I can't even recall who the entertainer was at the time. However, when I was in the audience, there was this one guy who continued to engage with the comedian on stage, and he was very funny. And so I had no idea who he was, but I was drawn to this person because he had a good riff with the comedian. He was very entertaining, and everyone in the audience laughed. That was Iva Williams Jr.
No, the third.
The third. Okay, the third. And so I had no idea. And later in life, I ended up getting a job and later worked, in the corporate setting. And we ran into each other again. And it was him. I said, oh my goodness, you are the person that was basically heckling the comedian and doing a good job at it. So anyway, that's how we met. And I always remember that story. It's probably been 20 years ago now that happened, but it still was memorable to me because it was quite funny. And still today, we're still telling jokes in this setting. So how fun.
I have told people before that I will heckle the comedians, and they don't believe me.
Oh, no,
so
no, no,
I
no.
just had
Oh,
to...
you did it. Yes, you did that.
Now, we're in a strange business environment right now. And I would love for you to give some professional advice, particularly to entrepreneurs, small business owners, individuals who are navigating this landscape, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with some business advice. This Women's Month from one of my favorite leadership women.
Oh.
And I'm looking forward to this lesson.
Okay. Well, right now we're definitely in a unique time in our history. And so there are a number of things that are always, I call them, been in style. They've been in vogue for a long time in terms of business success. And I think that what happens is that in terms of business owners, entrepreneurs, organizations, there's always been an opportunity for us to improve our strategic focus in terms of developing our strategies. And so some of the things I would say right now to do is take an inventory of how you make revenue. How does your company increases their revenue and their dollars to grow their business? So if you're selling a service or you're selling a product, one of the things you want to do is you want to really write down how that product or how that service is getting to the consumer. So you want to understand the flow of your money, if you will, in your business. You also need to be able to understand exactly what percent revenue is coming from what line of business. There are so many people that I run into who don't have any functional knowledge of how much money they really are making based on the lines of business. So for example, if you happen to sell t-shirts on one end, that's one revenue spoke. You may actually teach people how to make t-shirts, for example, which is another revenue spoke. And you may actually have one that you're actually selling your designs of your t-shirts. So those are three different lines of businesses that you say, okay, I may get 20% from this line of business, 40% from this line of business, and the additional percentage from this other line of business. And there could be some other miscellaneous opportunities. So really understanding where your revenue is coming from in this business environment. Number two, I think it's important to know for sure how to find your ideal customer and being able to manage those customers in a way that you know their needs, you know their desires. So for example, I'm really big on safety. I really want to make sure that if you're having a product or a service that enhances my safety in some sort of way, I feel good. Or if it helps me to feel healthier, then I feel good. or if it helps me to feel like I'm, more energized. So those are things that are from a psychological standpoint, I understand about me as a customer. So you should understand that same nature about your own individual customers. Number three, it's important to have always, I call a good bench strength. What that means is that always identify 3 to 4 people at a moment's notice that you can call to provide a service or a product for your business. So if you happen to need someone that needs printing, you need to call, for example, Joe's Printing to be able to have him available, Joe Smith, for example, on your phone to be able to say right away, I need this service. If you happen to need some additional services, always have a strong bench strength. We are not designed to do business alone together in this world. So we were finding is that the connection between people is very important for us to have. And so I think it's important for us to think through, how to make sure that you have the right people in your organization, or at least in your phone, that you can call when you need services. Number 4, I think it's really important too, is understand how your business is structured. We may have a business that's gone 10, 12 years. For example, I started Sky Connect in 2013. So we've been in business for a long time. However, when I first started, I think that I may not have been really knowledgeable about all the business structures that are out there, because when I started my first business, Right Communications, late in the late 90s, I had no idea about all the things that I know now. And so I didn't do a good job of structure. I didn't do a good job of having a strong bench strength. I didn't do a good job of that. And so now I know better, I do better. And that's what I encourage business owners and organizations to do now. The 5th thing I would say is incorporating technology in everything we do. If you incorporate technology, that means you are utilizing the best practices that are out there to exponentially grow your business. What happens, most of us don't want to spend the money for the great tech. But if you don't, you're going to be left behind. And if you're left behind, then people realize your business is not modern, you're not understanding what's happening. So we know for sure that we're in a culture where people are not coming door to door to your business. They're going door to phone, for example, or phone to phone. And they're simply are having that opportunity to connect with you. And that's great, but are you there making it easy for them to connect with you? So how are you using technology? And I'm thinking in-depth technology, not just typically, Facebook and social media, but going deeper in terms of those areas. So those are the 5 things I would say, Iva, is what I would say businesses are really managing and challenging themselves differently today than they probably were 10, 20 years ago.
I love that. That was awesome. Now, I want to go back to number 4, if you don't mind, which is the building your bench, right? I think, in fact, I know that I have not built a bench whatsoever because, you're afraid, you're looking for somebody, you can't find the right match, you give up on looking, you try again. Can you dig a little deeper for those of us who, may not be building the bench well? Help us out.
I will. This is really where there is a trust factor here. And so what happens is that what I typically have done in all my businesses, especially when I started Sky Connect, is that I would work with people for 30 days or 60 days. And I would say, let's do a trial run. You may not like me, I may not like you, but after 60 days, no harm, no foul. You've been paid for your services or your product and you're moving on, or I'm moving on. And so there's this trial period in terms of building my bench. And because I was able to do that frequently, I found people who were just diamonds in the rough, who just needed an opportunity. So I would say, make sure you utilize a short-term window. Just because you hire someone today, you don't have to keep them for a year or 2 years. You can keep them for 6 weeks, for example, on a project base. And they understand that we are in a gig economy. People are utilizing their services and branching out short-term. They're not necessarily always long-term. That's number 1. I would also say number 2 is that be sure you get a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. What this does is that it protects you, because if you release some information that I'll share with you that's proprietary, that's copyrighted, I can sue you. And those things help you protect yourself and intellectually as well, because there's a lot that we know intellectually that we don't want everyone else to know. And so having a non-disclosure agreement helps you to make sure that that happens. Number 3, ask someone to see if they can shadow you. They may want to come to one of your events or one of your activities and just be a part of your process for a short time period, even short, maybe 24 hours. hey, I've got a big event coming up next Saturday. I just want you to pop in, see if it's something you're interested in, and we can find out. That way, it's a short term. You're not necessarily paying them for that, but they're actually able to take a kind of a bird's eye view of your business before they step into it or before you decide to bring them into it. So that's what I do for people who are trying to focus on the bench. And of course, I look at trying to, instead of getting 100% of all the money, which may be very small, I may get 15% of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, hey, I'd rather have 15% of something than 100% of nothing. So I think that we need to think bigger. And I do believe I had a conversation with a lady just a couple of days ago, and she was trying to grow her business. And I said, well, are you willing to invest? Well, I don't have a lot of money. I said, but are you willing to invest in yourself? Can you spend $1,000 on X, Y, and Z? I'm not real sure. I said, well, you may need to ask the question, are you ready to expand? You may not be ready, and that's okay. So I'm always believing in that. If they print money, I can make money. And that's basically how I've lived my life. And I'm so fortunate. But I also think that we need to value relationships. So there's this relationship triangle that if people see you, they know you, they trust you, they're out there, they start realizing, okay, this person could be validated. I can validate them. But I always think about trust and verify. So
That's right.
that's kind of where I look at my life. I trust you, but I'm gonna verify it too. And so that's how I look at building your bench strength, in my opinion.
Thank you so much for that. I always have to take advantage of opportunities to advance myself as well. Finally, let's talk about your book, right?
Yes.
I had to get my personal stuff. I'll hold it up just a little more. Perfect. And now let's talk about the book. There is a difference, I tell people, and you correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Going to college is about getting a basic understanding. Getting a master's is about really understanding the intricacies of your major.
Mm-hmm.
And a doctorate is you've put so much into it, you can teach somebody else.
Love that. Love that. You did a great job of explaining.
And so with that being said, tell us about, your book and your mission through that book.
Okay, thank you for asking me. Well, the book title is Shhh, Unlocking the Secrets of the Fortune 1000 Business Playbook. I call it Success Tactics for Small Businesses to Engage Large Corporations. And this experience has always stuck with me. And so 2016, 2017, I started thinking about the things I was involved in. I worked for a really large corporation and organization. I worked a whole lot with suppliers and vendors and worked in the procurement space. And I worked around people all over the country. And I realized there are some secrets that corporations don't tell those small businesses because it's just kind of, the inside football. It's almost as if you're in a specialized group and only those people in that group know the answer. Those outside the group are trying to get the answers to those questions. And so I started thinking about that, and I had a experience that I chronicle in the book that you can read more about. But basically, I was trying to figure out a way to basically tell the secrets to these organizations and smaller entities that I want them to find out. So I talk about in my book about the 4 C's of the relationship tower. I talk about these aha moments around businesses. I also get into what I call my mom theory as well, which is another component in my book. I unveil some of the corporate secrets there. I talk about knowing your numbers, knowing your business numbers as well, and revenue numbers. Understanding more about, the conversation about what I call killers and deal breakers, the things that we just know. We think about it, but we don't know about it. It's almost as if one of those examples that if you're in a conversation with someone, they've got a really great story they're telling you, try not to one up their story. What happens is that you got a good story, but my story is much better.
Right.
And so you're trying to build that relationship. And I talk a lot about the relationship components of business. And so I decided to chronicle that in my book here called The Secrets of Corporations That We Don't Necessarily Get Told, Unlocking Those Secrets. And so if you were to Google, Alice Gordon Holloway, you can find me on Books A Million, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon. You can also buy from my publisher. You will also be able to go to my new website, which is draliceGholloway.com, and pick it up, because what I'm trying to do is basically be able to educate and inform those people who are like me, who have several business opportunities, who really feel they're, can do business, but what are the secrets I don't know about? And so I'm trying to give you, I'm pulling back the covers, if you will, and sharing
People
those
don't know what
stories.
they don't know.
They don't
and this
know.
book helps that.
Exactly.
Like, it gives you an insight about, you think you know.
Right.
But
You really don't know.
You really don't
You don't know. And what happens, companies won't tell you because they don't tell you that they don't trust small businesses. And it's not that they don't want to work with us because we're great, but reality is that if they give you a $2 million project, for example, and you flub it up, then that leaves them feeling like they probably shouldn't have given you that opportunity. Or if there's a trust factor and you don't show up when you said you're going to show up, that is another issue. Companies want you to show up and do what you say you're going to do and focus on it instead of saying, I can do all these great things. No, you can't. What can you do really, really well? And so I talk about those tactics in unlocking this business book playbook here. And I'll talk about the value proposition. I understand market positioning is important as well. We discuss operational efficiency. There's just a lot in here that I really want you to be aware of. And I think you'll be able to get some insight. And I hope that you'll pick it up because I would love for you to tell me how you feel about it and give me some feedback as well.
Now, I'm going to let that stand for itself, right?
Okay.
Get the book. You know what you're going to get out of the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I also pride myself on the fact that we have somewhat of a sophisticated audience, right?
Yes.
What do you offer as far as lectures and when you speak to organizations and whatnot? Sell yourself on why people need to bring you into their organization to make it better.
Okay. Well, thank you for asking that question. So we have a team, actually, Sky Connect Company. We have a team of strategists and organizational developers who actually work with companies all over the country. So what we do a lot of is that we work with boards of agencies, board of governors, for example. We work with trustees. We work with organizations that really are trying to get the best out of their organization through their people, through their processes, and through their products and their services. So how do we have that? And sometimes you need someone to come in and shake up the landscape. And that's what we do. We come in and work with those high-level senior managers, and we help them. We also help them from an organizational standpoint to look at processes and strategies that are currently working but can be refined. So for example, I did some recent work with the Department of Transportation, and a lot of my work was around developing technologies and looking at leaders and how organizations can function better in that regard. I was training business owners with that. I was looking at structure along with how to make sure they don't mishap, and also to how to negotiate for what you want, how to be sure you're negotiating. So our services at Sky Connect brings us together with individual large organizations, large entities, as well as those who are smaller businesses who are trying to make the next level up. I also do what I call cohort-based training, where we're actually working with individuals in cohorts who are trying to get their business from $100,000 to $200,000. In this case, I do a lot with people who are at $2 million and trying to get to $5 and $10 million strategies. So we're developing those concepts. We're looking at, trying to push the envelope, but we're not simply just training. So for example, I have a software that we utilize that's actually is a predictive software that looks at scenarios. So if you're trying to go from 18% of your business to another 22%, how do you get those different percentages? How do you move the needle from where you are now to where you want to be? And using software to do that. So we're looking at this predictive software that addresses those scenarios in your business, for example. We also have other assessments that provide you an opportunity to go and say, okay, I've got 6 or 8 people and they're all pretty good, but I need to matrix those organizational structures. I need to matrix who I have in my organizations that can do well to get to the next level. So we do a lot of those sort of things, helping you in that regard. The last thing I do a good bit of is manage IT. And so my folks, I've got several folks who actually are developing and understand the Microsoft Azure tenant, the Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and Visio and all these different systems that are out there that Microsoft have, because we are Microsoft Cloud engineers. And so a good bit of our work is working with organizations behind the scenes to be sure that if you have 20 people and they're all over the city, or for example, how do we connect them into each other? So we've got 4 people in our team who actually work with the managed IT portion in our company as well. So we're pretty busy, but we're always looking for more customers. And that's why you'll see on my social media channels, on my Facebook, on my LinkedIn, on my X channel as well as my Instagram, I'm always giving information. I'm sharing information almost daily about strategies, outreach, engagement, technology, tactics in business, management, leadership, etc. That's really my platform and almost like a mission, a ministry of some sort. I
So
really
let's
talk
remind
about that.
people of how they can follow you on all
Okay.
of those channels.
Absolutely. If you want to find me on IG, you can find me at Dr. Alice G. Holloway, and that's my Instagram account. If you want to follow me on Facebook, it's Alice M. Gordon on Facebook. And on LinkedIn is Dr. Alice Gordon Holloway, and I consistently post out there. I also have a YouTube channel. This is kind of fun. I actually do a YouTube channel, and I
Okay.
have a few interviews out there as well. I probably need to get you on now. I'm thinking about it, Iva, because you're so entertaining. And so I do that as well. So I have interviews out there with Steve Hightowers, is an old friend of mine. He's actually a billionaire in terms of his business, and he's actually talking about business strategies and business tips that he's sharing with you. I've got Dan Anderson as well, Melina Cunningham, and several other people. So we continue to try to encourage people to watch our YouTube channel and like and subscribe as well, and follow us, because we do post not necessarily every week, but every couple of weeks we post a new feature out there, and I would love to give you an opportunity to see us there as well.
Any shout outs before we go?
Yeah, I want to shout out, first of all, to DJ Strict. He's from Strict City Media. He's been incredible as my strategist and executive producer. He's been incredible for me to kind of reposition myself as well. I want to shout out to True Vine Publishing in Nashville, Tennessee for publishing my new book. Thank you so much for that as well. I want to thank my family and my husband for always continuing to give me the space to grow and develop. And I also want to thank the community here in Alabama for continuing to help me do all the things that I do in the city and across the country. And I also want to thank you, Iva, for Birmingham to have me on this program. This is so exciting. I've watched you for many years, and I'm so glad you continue to do well. And I'm glad we're still friends. So this is great.
Oh, thank you so much. And one last time about the book. Give the the title and the information and hold it up and let us know where we can find it.
My book is called Shh, Unlock the Secrets of Small Business Success, a Fortune 1000 Success Playbook. And you can get this on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes and Nobles. You can get it on Books A Million as well. But type in my name. You can also get it from True Vine Publishing, which sends it to you directly. And so I hope you get a chance to get it. It's $22.99, so it's not very expensive. But I have put a lot of information in here. I am a PhD organizational research scientist, and I love business, and I've been able to chronicle that in my new book.